Welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us. You're still watching Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. And so, because the legislature is the most important institution essential to the functioning of a representative democracy, so tonight we will be having a post-mortem on the National Assembly presiding officer's election. And joining me for that discussion is the former spokesman of the House of Representatives, Eseme Eyibo. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Honorable.
Thank you very much for this very good evening and giving me the opportunity to participate, in this conversation.
All right, so let's get to business. A new set of leaders has emerged for the National Assembly. How will you describe the outcome, and were you in any way surprised about the outcome?
Well, one thing I want to say first and foremost is that we have always had issues with the leadership recruitment culture in this country across board. So many issues, the election of the officers of the presiding officers of the National Assembly successfully threw up a lot of innovations, which I'm going to put on the table here. But first and foremost, I have to thank God. I have to thank the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I have to thank Shetima, the Vice President. I have to thank the senators, the members of the House of Reps. I have to also thank sincerely Senator Yari and his team, because that election has thrown up the beauty in the transparency, the beauty in credibility, in a free and fair process that it has thrown up. And the outcome of it has also been able to show to this country that there is now strength in diversity. The people of the minorities of this country, the South, the people of the South and other minorities, they have faith in this country, they have faith as stakeholders. That process has been able to make it clear. In fact, it has removed what used to be called a banana peel. So there is no banana plantation now in the National Assembly, so that you would not talk of banana peel, because that election was very transparent. And the outcome, what later happened, in fact, immediately after that election, a new innovation arose. There has always been a fallout of victor and vanquish. But the president of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, was able to trigger, a victor, a no victor, no vanquish situation by going into the executive discussion with the senators. By what he did, he has provided emotional insurance for everybody. And now everybody, including Yari, appreciated the process and also committed themselves to working together with this leadership. So that is a very critical innovation in our electoral process. It is indeed one of the best moments that National Assembly have ever had. And for the Godswill Akpabio that I know, with that emotional insurance he has given to cover all the members, for them to believe that, and indeed they need to believe that nobody will be left alone, he has successfully been able to enthrone the issue of the integrity of the institution. I can tell you that.
All right. You just pointed out that the election was a transparent one, but it is believed that the election took an ethnic turn. Now, don't you think Akpabio will be presiding over a divided Senate?
Well, can you come up with that question again?
All right. It is believed that the election took an ethnic turn. I'm asking, don't you think Akpabio will be presiding over a divided Senate?
No. I have already said about emotional insurance here. The moment, if Akpabio did not institute a no victor, no vanquish approach, because immediately after that election, Yari went and embraced him. That is very democratical. That shows the level of maturity. And the Senate president now went ahead to now call executive session. They discussed, they had heart to heart. They were able to see that they are not representing political parties or any bigotry, that they are representing Nigeria, and that they are all committed to making Nigeria the best. And of course, from the attitude and contributions of the senators in that executive meeting, from what we had, it has shown clearly that the quality of senators recruited now are not only super senators, but there are senators who have very genuine intention and legitimate democratic credentials to be able to take this country to the next level. So there will be no rancor in the Senate. It's going to be a free Senate. In fact, that executive session remove everything like banana peels. I have told you there is no more banana in the National Assembly. Now, with the removal of the banana, where would the peel come from? So there will be nothing like that. And two, beyond the emotional insurance, the executive, that's why I said I have to thank God, I thank President Tinubu, I thank Shetima, and the rest of the people. I want to say that with the level of symbiotic relationship that I've created now, Akpabio is a relationship manager, no doubt about that. If you like or you hate him, he's a relationship manager. And because he has expertise in managing relationships, and he is very generous when it comes to the issue of development. Akpabio's weakness is he prefers the loss of his own limbs, than underdevelopment. So he is a catalyst of development. And because of this principle, because of this disposition, we are going to have a very strong institution. I've said something about the integrity of the institution. He has laid a proper foundation for it. So when this is in place as it were, we are going to have a flourishing democracy where prosperity and growth will now form the fulcrum. And mind you, the president already set up some policy issues, and those policies have already triggered welcome and positive attitude from the Nigerian people. So what we need now is a legislative agenda. We need a legal framework. This will originate from the National Assembly. And with the harmony there now, with the emotional insurance there now, the trajectory of conflict in the National Assembly or executive legislative rascalism it has been brought to an end. So you are going to have a robust, constructive, and symbiotic relationship between these two critical arms of government.
All right, so we'll get back to that, but let's talk about the impact of the support Akpabio got from different quarters. But to be precise, how do you quantify the support of the president in ensuring that Senator Akpabio won the election?
Well, the support Akpabio had was very infectious and generous. It wasn't on the sentiment of anything. The president's support and the vice president's support for Akpabio's candidature was another way of giving meaning, adding verve to the issue of diversity. Of course, in our lifetime, nobody ever thought a minority would be able to emerge in any guise to become a vice president or to become a Senate president. But Akpabio's emergence is already a foretold prophecy. What kind of prophecy was foretold? Because for him to emerge, it has shown the credibility, the consciousness of an average Nigerian. It has given confidence and legitimacy to government that the current national leadership of Nigeria believes in the strength of our diversities. So whoever you are, wherever you are from, you now know that Nigeria is practicing political inclusiveness. You are now aware that there's a time in this country that the persons from Niger Delta, from the South Side, under a very clear and legitimate circumstance, has been able to become the number 3 citizen. So any other child in any other minority background can also emerge. So what the presidency did by supporting and promoting the Godswill Akpabio's Senate presidential candidature was actually trying to express their belief in the strength in our diversities.
So let's quickly go back to a few days before that election took place. As a matter of fact, 24 hours before that election took place, the Senate president was riding on the wave of popularity earlier in the race. And in fact, Senator Ndume once claimed he had 75 votes in the bag. Now, what made the race to be suddenly very tight?
I didn't hear that last part.
Did you get my question?
What part? Yes. I've not still heard you.
Oh, all right. The Senate president was riding on the wave of popularity earlier in the race. And I also said, in fact, Senator Ndume once claimed he had 75 votes in the bag. For you, what made the race to be suddenly very tight?
Well, what made the race to be very tight was because it was democratic, because it was transparent, because, I mean, it was credible, and it was free and fair. You know, at the point, some of us who were at the back room were even thinking that the Senate president would even win that election with 80 senators, 80 votes, you know. But because of the dynamics of politics that you and I know too well, and of course you cannot just throw away the strength of Senator Yari, as it were, and his team. He had a very strong man around him, and he did a very deep campaign, and he was trying to drive a vehicle, you know, from a direction that the direction was able to attract a couple of interests on his own part, but it would have been difficult for him to defeat Akpabio because Akpabio brought in innovations. Akpabio emphasized on diversities. Akpabio was able to dethrone the issue of bigotries, religious or ethnicity. Akpabio was able to dethrone it. Akpabio went a step further to be able to create the prospects for institutional integrity. The prescription of Akpabio's campaign, of course, had in its foundation the unity and the prosperity of this country. And he never missed the point that there has to be inclusiveness. So most of the issues, the campaign issues Akpabio was driving around it were like tornadoes. So it was quite difficult for anybody to dismantle that. And take note, his campaign and the person of the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, is like the issue of the raven and the eagle. You know, when the eagle is on flight, you always have a raven on its peak. You know, what the eagle does is that it doesn't in any way attack the raven. It will take the raven into a high altitude where the raven will lose oxygen and come down. So strategically, I think that was the method Akpabio deployed with his relationship management. So when he he realized that the race was becoming very tough. He now went to a higher altitude. So the oxygen became insufficient for those who cannot stand it. But this is a man who has experience, who has capacity, who has pedigree, who has a network. So he had sufficient oxygen to go without the enemies being able to chase him out. So he had a lot of barricade that was able to. Akpabio, frankly speaking, is Akpabio and Jibrin. Those two pairs became fantastic balanced diet for that election. They balanced the diet, and it's good for the nation.
All right. So, Honorable Seme, you may be aware of this. There's a document in the public domain indicating how the senators voted. Don't you think it's in bad taste to release this kind of information?
Well, the document you are talking about, I have also seen a document how the senators voted and all of that. That is the beginning of the unity of this country, because the pattern of the voting broke the prejudices of bigotry. You see somebody from the South voting for Yari. You see somebody from the far north voting for Akpabio. So the prejudices of the bigotries in this country was broken by that election, you know? And so it wasn't even the issue of money. You also heard a rumor how some other gentlemen were bringing a lot of tons of money and all of that. So it meant that gradually the issue, the influence of money in our politics is now taking a downturn. And now we are now beginning to come about with credibility, institutional integrity, capacity and experience of individuals and all of that. So it didn't matter to me. Rather, it promoted the concept of what we stood for. The moment we started having the migration of the voting pattern was unpredictable, you know. But one thing was very clear, that the prophecy is foretold.
All right, TVC. Now let's go on a break. Tonight we're discussing National Assembly presiding officers election post-mortem, and I have a former spokesman of the House of Representatives, Eseme Ayibo. We'll take a commercial break and I'll be right back. Please stay with us. Having a post-mortem on the National Assembly presiding officers election, and for better perspective on that is the former spokesman of the House of Representatives, Eseme Ayibo. All right, Honorable, now let's go on. Some senators have said that Akpabio is vindictive and cannot be trusted. But for you, how do you describe the Akpabio that you know?
Well, can you come up with that again?
All right. Some senators have said Akpabio is vindictive and cannot be trusted. But how do you describe the Akpabio that you know? And don't you think he would persecute those who refuse to vote for him?
I can tell you clearly. Hello?
Please go on.
Yeah, I can tell you clearly that those who are holding the opinion that Akpabio cannot be trusted, it depends on the perspective they are coming from. You know, because if I can tell you, Akpabio has been a champion at various levels for so many years. Where Akpabio is now, Akpabio is a statesman. Akpabio no longer looks for laurels. Akpabio is now looking for legacies.
Honorable Eseme, are you there?
So a man who's in... Hello?
Please go on.
Yes, a man who is in search of legacies, in most cases, it can never be understood. So for those who are saying...
Honorable Eseme, are you there? All right, tonight we're having a post-mortem on the National Assembly presiding officers election. And with me on the program tonight...
Akpabio cannot deal, but I can tell you that Akpabio, for who he is, and for all I know, presently, Akpabio is out not to be a champion, but to remain a statesman, filled up with legacies.
All right. So the election went the way the APC planned it. But what effect do you think this will have on the polity?
Sorry?
The election went the way the APC planned it. What effect do you think this will have on the polity?
The APC did what?
The election of the presiding officers went just the way the APC planned it. I'm asking you, what effect do you think this will have on the polity?
Well, I can tell you now that the trajectory of our national politics and political party management has actually and largely changed, to the extent that political parties before now were very interested in the issue of recruiting all manners of people, you know, and winning elections. And there was no clear difference between politics and governance at the time. But this is the first time in this country where there's a clear division now between politics and governance. And because of this division between politics and governance, senators and representatives of various political parties now appreciate the import of the Constitution when it says in its preamble that we, the people of Nigeria. So if you observe the trend as it's going now, very little is said about the political party, and largely so much is said about the institutions and Nigeria as a country. So APC as a political party has been able to set agenda for further conversations on the issue of national consciousness by the way it administers the organization. The APC has been able to show sufficiently that it has capacity, it has character, it has in its membership people who will be able to take this country to the next milestone. So I can tell you, if I understood you very well, that as we are now, we have entered the regime of peace, the regime of value addition, a regime where people would not be known by regional consciousness, but will be known by national consciousness.
Right. So now that the new National Assembly has been inaugurated, I mean, it's been a week. So what are your expectations about the 10th Assembly?
The 10th National Assembly is going to be great. It's going to be quite great. And leadership is a responsibility that at all times must be earned. So it is a responsibility that must be accounted for. And what is leadership when it comes to the issue of responsibility in the National Assembly? The leadership of the National Assembly, the chairman of the National Assembly is the president of the Senate. So the quality, caliber, and the integrity of the current president of the Senate and his deputy, the speaker and his deputy, I can tell you is a mix of what is like the granules. What is making an antibiotic effective is not the caplet, it is the granules inside. Those are the essential clinical particles that, of course, heal. So what I'm trying to say, therefore, is that it's not the 360 members, it's not the 109 senators, it's the leadership that will be able to create and show direction. And so far, the Senate, to the best of my knowledge, have been able to cultivate, it has been able to win for itself the followership of its members. So the members believe they have taken over ownership of the Senate. They have taken over the ownership of the House of Representatives. So when that flows, the confidence will now flow from the leadership straight to the members. So you are going to have a very robust and constructive National Assembly where members are going to be very effective in the issue of oversight, in the issue of legislation, in the issue of appropriation, and of course, the general putting together of public policies and looking into our laws with an intention to be able to trigger what the policies and the intent of the executive. Now, look at the issue of the subsidy withdrawal, for example. There are going to be an inflow of money from that action. And a very responsible government has been in place, has been able to show direction. It's going to intervene in education, it's going to intervene in health, it's going to intervene in infrastructure. Even while the ink has not yet gotten dried up, the president signed the Student Loan Act. While the ink has not dried up, the president signed the Electricity Act on bundling electricity, so that electricity now is going to look like the telecom, where there's been a competition. You hear MTN, for example, saying a woof, midnight calls and all of that, unlike when it used to be a monopoly. So that aspect has been unbundled, and electricity, you know how important it is. So we also need to have a National Assembly that will be able to have a buy-in into this level of sophistication by the executive. And the National Assembly we have now, I can assure you that, of course, majority of the members, I think about 200 and something, and there are 200 plus are new members, and so they need to come in to learn the rope. So with the ones left behind, especially his leadership, it's going to create an atmosphere that will be able to carry these people along for them to learn very fast and have that sense of belonging in participation in the legislative duties of the 10th Assembly.
All right, so that's it for the National Assembly. So what kind of Senate president will Akpabio be?
I have told you that I know Akpabio very well. I know his weaknesses. I can do an expose of his weakness. Akpabio prefers the loss of his own limbs than assuming a position, assuming a responsibility without innovation, and of course, development. So he has won laurels. He's no longer looking for laurels. He's now looking for legacies. He doesn't want to become a champion.
He has become a champion severally. That's why he graduated and migrated from being a champion to being an uncommon man. Uncommon to the extent that things ordinarily people would not understand that it can be done. He gets them done seamlessly. So the kind of Senate president we are going to have is going to be a Senate president. It's going to be a National Assembly that Daily Times editorials of 1963 is said clearly that the greatness of our nation, Nigeria, sooner or later, before Nigeria reaches 70, before Nigeria is 70, the greatness of Nigeria will be expressed. As we are talking today, what Asiwaju is doing is taking Nigeria on the path of what is happening in progressive and developed countries. You'll be shocked. Over time, Nigeria will be having a stronger foundation than China. So, with the light of Akpabio, who is very angry about underdevelopment, who is very solid, who is exposed, who is open, who is read, who is experienced, what he wants to have is going to be a legacy. And that legacy is going to be the promotion and, of course, of the promotion of prosperity in this country. Akpabio will collaborate with other institutions. Akpabio is a connecting rod that will be able to trigger the jumpstart of the economic activities of this country through legislative activities. So he's a man who believes in legacies. He's not interested in being a champion. And that's why he went the extent he did. After that election, he went into the executive to discuss, with the other members that, look, there is no victor, there is no vanquish. It's the Senate of Nigeria. It is the Senate to represent the Nigerian people. So Akpabio's presidency of the Senate is going to be a model that will be studied in modern political jurisprudence in the days ahead.
Right. Honorable Seme, as a former spokesman of the House of Representatives, how confident are you about the ability of the new leaders in the Senate and House of Representatives to pilot their affairs effectively?
Well, you see, over time, this country, the average Nigerian person, government in Nigeria have suffered
Honorable Seme, are you there?
to give up a new direction, a new Nigeria, where an average child, an average young person will believe in it. For example, it was very rare. You saw the other day when national NANS, the students, the national body of the NANS, went to visit the president. They engaged constructively. And that was done. And you are still seeing that too many things will be coming up. So the issue of legitimacy of government, a lot of young people will wake up to tell you that, look, government, they rejected and disowned government. The democracy, which of course we learned that it is a government of the people, for the people, by the people, was altered. The post-independent meaning of democracy were altered as a government of the tyrants for the abetment of the people and for the tyrants. But it is now we are beginning to experience the fulcrum of the rule of law, that things are done ordinarily well. Look at the conduct of the election of the principal officers in the National Assembly, the transparency, the credibility, the free and fair practice in that session is giving power back to the Nigerian people. So the sovereignty of the people, which have been entrusted in the Nigerian people and encapsulated in chapter 14, provision 14 of our constitution, saying that the primary purpose of government shall be the welfare and the security of the people. From the action of the president so far, and from the action of the readiness of the Senate and National Assembly now to activate that, this is a clear indication that the National Assembly is ready, is willing, and is prepared to be able to complement what executive and the judiciary will be doing to return back power to the people. Returning back power to the people is the issue of the enthronement of the issue of social justice. Social justice is to every man his own due. So it is now time It is the jubilee of the minorities. It's now time that we have experienced the provision, the escalation of what the enthronement of social justice in Nigeria, where inclusiveness, where diversity has actually been embraced. So when that is done, we are now enjoying a regime of legitimacy and acceptability by the people. So far, so good. I can assure you, I don't have any other thing to bet as a collateral, but I use my heart as a collateral to bet this nation of very good and great and noble people that this country is going to be great again by the prophecy of the editorials of Daily Times of 1963.
All right. So that will lead me to my next question. I mean, you and I know that what makes a democratic system tick and confirms its legitimacy is the existence of an independent legislature. However, some analysts are already suggesting that the new set of leaders may pander to the whims of the executive arm of government. How will you react to this?
Well, you know, this thing, you hear people talking about rubber stamping. I'm sure that is a modest way. You are also, the issue of rubber stamping, you are coming in with a modest way to present this. But I can tell you now, if you go to the subnationals, that is the states, no speaker, deputy speaker, none of the presiding officers in the State House of Assembly can image. The governor must have a say. The governor must have an input because these are the people we want to work with. So those who are talking about the rubber stamping or, you know, they don't understand how it works. So if as subnational, we all come from respective states, one state or the other, the governors are interested in who becomes a speaker. In one of the states neighboring Abuja here, somebody emerged with a higher number of votes, but the person with the lower number of votes was sworn in as a speaker. Now, as magical as that was, it was happening in a state, and people are not talking about it. We are talking about the issue that 774 local governments in this country. Nothing is going on. If you go, some of them cannot even cut grass in their premises, and nobody is bothered about. And that was a tie of government that was intended, you know, to stimulate rural development. Nobody is talking about it. And we come from one local government or the other, one state or the other. But we are coming here to Abuja to begin to talk and begin to denigrate and do all those things that, of course, to undermine the authority and the integrity of the national institution. That is wrong. Now, modern democracy, if you watch it from America, the American Congress, but I don't want to quote from them because we have our own peculiar democracy. We have our sensibilities, we have our culture. You don't go into a needless activism so that they will say you are confronting the executive. No, the time for needless activism is gone. We are talking about the issue of the process. For example, the president came up with the issue of the Electricity Act, the student loan, and of course the withdrawal of subsidy, and of course the central bank reforms and all of that. And somebody, because you are of the opposition party, you don't see anything good in that. And you begin to feel that the National Assembly officers or the principal officers or the National Assembly, as it were, should go against the executive. That's a needless activism, and that is not democracy. Democracy, by the speculation and prescriptions of the rule of law to the extent of the separation of powers, is making sure that the laws as it were, by the effect of Section 4 sub 1, I keep quoting it, he has cut out a responsibility for the National Assembly. The primary purpose of the legislative powers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall rest in a Senate and a House of Representatives. That's National Assembly. We are talking about the issue of law. We are talking the issue of money bills. We are talking about the issue of oversight. When the executives are doing what's not right, in the course of the oversight, this will be the attention of the executive or judiciary or any other arm of government will be drawn to it. But not the issue will stand out, want to impeach the president, that this has to be done, your political party is saying this and all of that. Of course, you heard the other day when a member of the I think Labour Party, my brother Victor Ogene, stood up to say his heart is for Wase, but he wants to vote for Abbas. And a lot of people took that to be a cheap talk, or they took it to be a joke, but that was a deep philosophical contribution to our jurisprudence. You know, that yes, I love you as a person. I love you as a person. But for institutional harmony and growth, I'm going to vote for this person. These are, we must practice these issues of concessions and harmonizations, and of course, team building for the progress of our people.
All right, then. So based on how competitive the 2023 general election was, it would be right to say the lawmakers struggled to get elected, and followed by the race for the leadership position. And now we have the scramble for juicy committees. Why are we always in a sort of rat race, Honorable Seme?
This one is going to be different. You know, when you hear people talking about juicy committees, it's like somebody saying, I want to marry a very good wife. No. You hear somebody going to a church, he will go and ask pastor to pray for him, that God should give him a good wife. Are you a good man that you are looking for a good wife? Simple answer. So you have to be a good man first to pray to God to give you a good wife. If you are a bad man and you are going to ask God to give you a good wife, God doesn't work like that. So when you say juicy committee, people make these committees juicy. You don't have capacity. You don't understand the workings of such committee. You don't even understand the preambles, how the Constitution, what the Constitution intended by making the National Assembly, you know, a check and balance breach. You don't understand. You say you are looking for juicy committee. How are you going to get juicy committee? Meanwhile, you are a medical doctor. You want to become the chairman of works, and meanwhile you have 1136, or the certificates are even questionable, and you want to become the chairman of the NDDC. How are you going to oversight the preponderance of the issues concerning the interventionist agency like NDDC? So when you hear people talking about that, they are just trying to create an expose of where they're coming from. This particular government and the particular leadership in the National Assembly now, it has a business mentality. Godswill Ekpabio, Tajuddin, Jibril, and Kalu, they all have business mentality. The business mentality, a businessman will undertake a business that will bring profit. And profit in the business, in the mentality of the National Assembly, is what will be accruable for the benefit of the people. The social services, the interventions, the difference that it will create. So the era of juicy committee, people scrambling for whatever is the juicy committee, that era is gone. It used to be era people bring in money. Either you know, my governor gave you this amount of money to become speaker, or this person gave you this amount of money to become. He said, look, I'm going to give you this money. Give chairman of this committee to my state. I'm going to give you this. Give this chairman committee to my people. That era is gone.
All right.
Yes.
So, Honorable Sema, with about 7 political parties represented at the National Assembly, can we guarantee unity of purpose in this dispensation?
Well, I have said here that the innovations now in the National Assembly, the innovations now has gone beyond political parties. The political parties only serve the purpose of being the vehicle that people use that vehicle to be able to drive, you know, because there is no room for independent candidates. So the political parties acted as a vehicle. But after the election, the moment everybody is admitted on oath of the Federal Republic and oath of office, it becomes very clear that we are no longer talking about politics. That oath admits you into a commitment. That oath admits you into firmness. That oath has caused you to now say that you shall work only in tandem with one purpose, the purpose of the progress and prosperity of the Nigerian nation. So the issue of Labour Party, SDP, APC, PDP, and all of that is that they have been left behind at the bus stop. Political party will stop at the bus stop, and then the governance will now start from there. So by the time they come back to that bus stop, it's going to be after 4 years. And as long as they are living under the commitment of the oath of the Republic, of course, they have to see themselves as representing the people and not the if you are representing me, you say you are a PDP person or you are an APC person. So where in the Constitution are not? Let me give you one joke that happened in my time. Somebody got up to move a motion, and he said, "I represent the good people of XYZ." And I raised a constitutional point of order. And what was it all about? So I said he's not representing anybody because we have 360 members. If somebody gets up to say he represents the good people of XYZ federal constituency, that means there's another person who is representing the bad people of that XYZ. That would make it 361. So some of these things are usually done out of ignorance. So we've traveled a lot. We've traveled a lot as a nation. We've gone through a lot as a nation.
All right.
We must see the Nigerian people as the people we represent.
All right.
And in doing that, we should look beyond the intricacies and the travesties of the political parties and embrace the need and the reason for prosperity and growth of Nigeria as a nation.
All right. Thank you for that. Now, as an institution, how do you think the National Assembly can help government execute its renewed hope agenda?
Can you come on again, please?
All right. So how do you think the National Assembly can help government execute its renewed hope agenda? And also, how will you advise the President and the APC to ensure harmony with the National Assembly?
There's one thing I need, There's something I need to let you be aware. I've said it in a couple of...
Honorable Seme, please go ahead with your contribution.
Okay. I've said it in a couple of media interactions and engagement. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is holding a knife that has two edges. Either he cuts himself or he cuts the enemy of progress. And that knife is reflected in his leadership recruitment process. Who are you recruiting into the institutions of government? The last government, I have said it before, Buhari is a very good man. Recruited people who came and saw political appointment as a national souvenir, which was given to them. Institutions got to a point that it became so deteriorated, ministers were using their ministries as a buffet table. The civil servants who were working under them, nobody was supervising anybody. In fact, in that regime, a lot of people, eggs were provided in the budget to prepare the national omelette. But there was no omelette. Where the eggs are, up to today, nobody knows with where part of those eggs that were provided in the budget. The situation where a minister will go and bring his dry cleaner to be his PA and paid by government. A situation where tractors are provided for in the budget and the money appropriated for it, those tractors are auctioned and sold without being supplied for one day.
All right.
There was no supervision.
Honorable Seme, let's focus on the future. Let's leave the past behind us.
So I'm not going on what went wrong. You are talking about how we will be able to improve the value. So we should be able to recruit competent people. People who are competent, people who understand the dynamics, people who are able to read the president and understand the vision of the president. So once you have a whole lot of those people, the institutions will rise again. These people are the people to provide oxygen, to provide life support.
All right.
Because, and doing that will become the right thing to do. The institutions will rise. And once the institutions are strong, the issue of oversight will become less burdensome. Because the legislature will need, the only thing the legislature has there as a tool is the power of the oversight. You now begin to see 1 million naira which was provided for this thing. Where is that thing? They will ask those questions. And if they don't answer it, then they will have to go for it. The executive should also be able to stop shielding its officers from responding to queries. The Auditor General will give a query, the National Assembly Public Accounts will give a query, and of course they invite any of those members of the executive. Some of them will refuse to attend. So that's no longer the issue of the rule of law. So we should create a situation where the checks and balances we'll be able to have it. Once that is dethroned, then we have lost the garment of democracy.
Thank you very much, Honorable SMA Ayibo. That's a good way to end the show. Thank you so much. Tonight, it's been a discussion on the National Assembly Presiding Officer's election post-mortem. And doing justice with me is former spokesman of the House of Representatives, Honorable SMA Ayibo. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure having you on the program. Thank you very much.
I really appreciate your company this night. Thank you very much.